and welcome to Voices of Truth, one-on-one with Hawaii's future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. I'm Ahu Keikahu Cardwell, and here we are today in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall. We have a fascinating show and an interesting guest today. Let's go on over here and meet her. Lynette, aloha.
Aloha.
How are you? Lynette Cruz, yes?
I'm good. I'm cold.
Good. You're cold?
I'm cold, yes.
You got a nice big thick jacket on,
Yes,
I see.
do.
Wow.
We're here in Washington, D.C., and for me it's really cold.
Yeah, far away from home where it's nice and warm.
Too warm, but you know, okay.
Yeah. But look at this display. Look at where we are. This is the Ku'e Petition Project's name display, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Tell us what this is.
What we see here are 2,228 signs. Each one has a name of someone who signed those petitions protesting annexation of Hawaii to the United States. We have 1/10 of the number of names that were on that petition, some 20,000 plus. We're not up to the 20,000 plus name signs yet, but at some point we will be. Right now we have 1/10. We're happy to have them.
So we have 2,000 names here of people who signed a petition, a monster petition, back in 1897,
yes,
stating that they said no to the annexation of Hawaii to the U.S.
That's correct, yes.
Wow.
So I think it was a risky thing to do back then. I think there were consequences, but when people believe that they must defend, they do their best. The law requires approval by the country that's being annexed if there truly is an annexation process. But what really happened was there wasn't any, right? A treaty of annexation had been submitted to the Congress by the Republic of Hawaii, and the Queen directed the people to sign a petition if they did not want to be annexed to the United States, and she used those signatures to defend her position at Congress, basically, to say to them, this is what the people say, and they're saying no. And so Congress actually needs to take that into account, and that's why the treaty failed, because the people said no.
Wow. And so that's why on these signs here, the person's name and where they're from is on one side, but on the other side of each of the signs it says no treaty of annexation, yes?
That's right. That was their statement. It was pretty clear.
Wow.
And so we're kind of continuing that work. That statement was clear then and it's clear now.
Wow.
One of the reasons we're here, of course, is to educate people about the history of the Hawaii, what happened in Hawaii. But the second thing, really, and more important thing, in my view, is to honor them.
Honor the ancestors.
We honor them by name because they did something that was a little risky, and there were consequences to pay for putting your name on a list that was not very popular, certainly not with the ruling elite, not safe, but they did it anyway. And you know, kind of like, can we ask less of ourselves? That's, to me, how it relates in one way to the present time.
Yeah, wow. Wow, so it was risky back then to sign the petition.
Yeah.
And so you guys, members of Kale Maili'ili'i Hawaiian Civic Club of Honolulu, decided that you wanted to bring these signs to Washington, D.C. for display. You had them on display in Hawaii and Honolulu and everywhere before, yes?
Yes.
You had them at Iolani Palace and some other places, I guess. McKinley High School.
And Thomas Square. We came here to actually let people know that that position of resistance to annexation of Hawaii to the United States hasn't really stopped. But the other thing was to enlighten people on the fact that we were never annexed to begin with. So it worked. I mean, it worked. And we're saying they helped this thing to fail, this treaty of annexation, and it worked, and we brought them back, and they can see that somehow we're still in struggle, but their position hasn't changed, and ours hasn't either.
And their voices haven't been silenced. Their voices still deliver the message today. All these people.
Each name is a person, and we see them. So, you know, that sort of changes the way that people respond. When you begin to see that name as a person, that person is your family. You have kuleana for that name, that person.
Yes.
So, interesting dynamic happening when people view what's laid out.
Yeah. All right. So this display will have been up for 2 days.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people have come by here to see this, both Hawaiians as well as people who are not Hawaiian, people who are just passing by. Maybe they live and work around the area, or maybe they're tourists visiting Washington, D.C. What has been some of the response from people when they see this?
mostly they cry if they're Hawaiian. It's an interesting thing because we have non-Hawaiians who are coming by all the time, and interest is high. We have talked to hundreds and hundreds of people yesterday and today. We weren't even really set up. It just the light was coming up and people were already stopping by at the tent and asking, what's going on? Can you share? They see the flag and they think that the flag is a British flag. So it gives us a way to talk to perhaps the relationship of King Kamehameha with King George. And like, wow, everybody says, oh, we didn't even know that. And that's why this looks the way it does. Yes, okay. And then we talk about what happened afterwards. And then we talk about Hawaii as a kingdom, as a state. And then it kind of leads us into this idea of why people would protest annexation of Hawaii to the United States. Their question is, don't you want to be Americans? And so our point always is, you know, these things happen 100 years ago, and they impacted on us in a particular way. And we have to figure out how we're going to deal with it, but we're not the only ones. I think it's a really successful way to talk about and to display history and people's impact, the impact that it has on the people who are learning more about what happened in Hawaii.
Wow, amazing. So obviously this has been a lot of work to set up all these signs, yeah?
Lots of work.
Yeah. How long did it take to plan all this out before this event actually happened?
Well, it took us a year to get a permit.
Really?
From the National Park Service.
Wow.
And then we didn't get the place that we wanted, which was closer to the Capitol Dome.
Yeah.
But it's under construction, so we weren't able to get it. So for that whole year, we were creating signs with the assumption that we would get a permit. It may not all be as neat as we would like it to be, but the reality is there is a charm in the differences in ways in which the names are written. You just take a look at it and it's like, oh, everything's different, as they were.
Well, if you look at the petitions, the names were written differently. Each
as
one
they
was
were.
different. Yes.
Yeah, and even if you see them as individual people, different in how they were.
Each sign has a different personality. Each name has a different personality. Yes. Yes.
So what you see too there are some woven tea leaf lei, small kind, hanging on some of the signs, if not all of the signs.
Yes.
And these lei were given to us by a whole number of people, but spearheaded by Wahiawa Hawaiian Civic Club, who volunteered to make one for each sign. For us, at like 2,228 signs, do you think you can make them? And what happened was, of course, it's too much for one club, and all these other clubs started bringing in tea leaf and brought the leaves here, and all day yesterday and today, they made them. Volunteers sat around and braided leaf to make the lei. And so I guess what this illustrates is that it's not about our club. It's not about a group. It's really about all the descendants today taking some responsibility for the well-being of their ancestors.
So Lynette, you know, as we stand here, I mean, I look at this and I'm just in awe of all of these names, and all of these names represent somebody. Tell us about that.
We took our names right from the book.
Right from the petition.
From the petition book. We tried to get them spelled properly, because nothing worse than having your name misspelled, as we know. And as we were doing it, people began looking for their own family's names. So we didn't have much of a system in terms of kind of knowing who we already have up there, so we don't make duplicates. And here's an example. Like right there is Nahale, North Kohala.
Uh-huh.
And then there's another JK Nahale, Kona Akau, Hawaii. And what we're writing on those signs is exactly how it comes out in the book.
So on each sign is the person's name,
yeah,
and then their age,
when they signed, and the place,
and the place where they signed, and also then the page number.
Yes, so that's where they're found in the book.
In the actual petition.
And that's what helped us create the database, because the database allows people to go look in the book itself to find out if this is the same. For example, Mrs. Mileka that we're talking about, is that the same family from that place? And the reason I pointed out Nahale, my husband, James, was adopted when he was a kid. And he didn't know his family until he was an adult. And we found out his name was Nahale. And his father was Joseph Nahale, J.K. Nahale maybe, but not his father.
Right up here.
Grandfather maybe. because this was signed in 1897.
Grandfather or great-grandfather,
Yeah,
maybe.
so family. So I was telling him, Teki Nahale, you're Ohana. And he said, yes, but you know, I can say that as in like intellectual thing, and I can say, look, there's your name. But for him, it's like in the gut. It's like, oh. And so all of a sudden, the history that separates us, that 100 years, gone.
Just vanishes, yeah?
And it's like now. And so Joseph Nahale is right there. And so that's your tutu. And that's why people cry. I mean, they seriously just break down in tears because that thing that has separated them, that they never knew about, disappears. And that's why these signs are powerful. That name has more power than you can imagine if it's yours.
Your husband was James, and this is his grandfather.
This is his ohana,
or his
probably.
Yeah.
Okay, he was, this person was age 20
Look at
when he
that.
signed in 1897.
These petitions were hidden. They were dormant for many years, right? People didn't know, just several generations didn't even know they existed.
There were references to a great petition, but nobody knew where they were. So we kind of think of it as a timing thing.
Time capsule.
Yes, but also a timing. Maybe they were not ready to be found.
Ah.
And then they get found, and then they come home, and then they impact so strongly on the people who see them. And then all of a sudden, information about our history, which is changing already, somehow becomes very, very personal. So it's not about the government, it's about us individuals. And then that awi, I mean, major Pantanakat, it hits home. And then we realize that they were trying to tell us something. And it took us forever to get the message. But we got it.
Yeah. Maybe they controlled the time of when it came out.
I often think about that. We think we know everything. We think we control. But the reality is, we don't. We have always tried to remember and incorporate it into our work, a recognition of what came before. Honor those ancestors. Honor them because they need it and we need it. And our children will need it after we pass. So honor them. And this is kind of like the best way that we know how to honor them.
You know, you really hit on something, what you just said, Lynette, because the Kale Maili'i Civic Club is really focused on the Queen and the Queen's work, yeah?
Yes.
And so it's carrying forth, the mission of the club is to carry forth the vision and the work of the Queen. And the Queen was one of the people who brought these petitions to that building right over there.
Yes.
Many years ago.
She asked them, sign it. And they replied by doing it because they love their country. Other things were going on as well, but to get them to sign those petitions was not hard at all. And men and women went out from the Hawaiian Patriotic League,
Hui Aloha Aina. Yeah.
And made the request, and everyone signed. Everyone signed. Kids signed. It was important because they knew how important it was to the Queen, and they were afraid.
Yeah, but you know what? It was back in the days, I mean, the 1890s. There was no fax machines. There was no email, no computers, no cell phones. There was, if you're lucky, horse and buggy, but most likely it was just you on foot, going from door to door, moku to moku, island to island. And yet they got 98% of all Hawaiians alive at the time.
Yep. There were two separate petitions that were signed. One was in support of the monarchy, and one was in opposition to annexation. And I believe that the anti-annexation petition was felt to be the better message to provide to Congress, because those guys were not exactly supportive of monarchy, given their history with England. So they chose the Hui Aloha Aina petitions. And obviously they were successful because members of Congress already had questions about whether or not it was legal to do this. James Avaliko was my father. I don't believe that was my father. This is my grandfather, who signed when he was 15. Maybe it was his father. I don't know. He's from Hilo, Hawaii, and I believe George is his brother. So that makes me feel really good. For one thing, I think people back then were a lot more civic-minded and politically aware. Small towns, you know, and people keeping up with what's going on and trying to be helpful however they could. What could they do when the overthrow happened? And the word went out that we were about to be annexed by the so-called Republic of Hawaii. People were asking the same question we asked today. What can we do? We don't know what to do.
What can little old me do?
Yeah. I mein, I'm not even there. No phone, no computer. I'm on the wrong island or on another island, and I don't know what to do. Basically, the Hui Alohain, Hawaiian Patriotic League, because of the Queen's request, sent people out. And they went to all the islands, meetings and churches and halls, any place you could find, and people came by the hundreds. And the question was asked, how many will sign this petition? Who will sign? Every hand went up. And so a meeting like that was where my grandfather or his father and my uncle, my granduncle and or his uncle, I don't know, actually signed. So they were politically active. I feel like all the time people get really caught up in doing their genealogy to find out who they are. Maybe it's better to just do your thing. And when you find your genealogy, you'll find that they were already doing it and the connection was there before you became aware of it. So yes, family.
So this is who you are.
Yes, that's what my question. Oh, no wonder. You guys laid the foundation a long time ago, and who knows who came before you. But my path was laid before I was born, and I'm basically saying and doing the same thing that you did at AO for that. The idea was spectacular and kind of frightening in its breadth, seriously. So we were tasked with making as many signs as we could, making sure that we had the funding to get them there and back, and to get us there and back, because we had to lay it out, we had to do the work, and that they were cared for, because the way the signs were laid out before weren't exactly solid. In other words, they weren't prepped for any kind of weather, so we had to kind of get them ready for travel. And I keep saying that as if they were people, because, you know, of course they are.
They are people.
So we had to prep them for travel. And we knew way ahead of time that they wanted to go, because it became really easy to get them ready, to find volunteers to help us, to get the funding to do this, that, and the other. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, although it was a challenge, yeah.
So, Lynette, tell me something. A lot of people have come by here who are Hawaiian, who have found their ancestors, but a lot of people have walked by who are not Hawaiian.
Yes.
Tourists, people who work in the area, and they see this. What has been their reaction?
Disbelief. Well, they like the idea of the names. They think it's really interesting because these names are not familiar to them. They're not English names, right, or American names. And they go by and they say, wow, these are really interesting, but what are they? And so we get a chance to talk about them as individuals, as people who took a position, who took a stand when it was not exactly popular to do that, who in a sense put themselves on the line. And all we have from that time is this record right here. To my knowledge, there is no other document like it where people have not only, I mean, this is not a census, right? I mean, there are censuses, but then your name may be taken down. It may not actually be you that's writing it down. But these guys actually took a position, they left us a record, and that's something that's really important because they left a record for us.
And they made a political statement that was dangerous to make at the time.
Yeah, but they left it for us.
Yes.
They didn't leave it for the Americans and the National Archive. They left it for us, and we had to wait, I don't know, 100 years.
There's no other document anywhere on Earth like this in history, yes?
Yes.
This is really unique, what they did.
It is. It's a great record. And they left it for us. Each sign is saying to someone who's a descendant, we need your help. That's what they're saying. So my grandfather or my great-grandfather and his brother are saying something to me. We need your help. The Queen needed their help. They came, they helped. I think the Queen still needs our help, except we're the ones, right? Because they went down.
Yeah.
So we can hook up with them, bring them back up, and together we can actually help. Not really clear how we're going to do that, but we can. So we're twice as strong. We're generationally strong, you might say, because our roots go deep.
But don't you think that if 2,000 people here today requested our help, they're also going to tell us what we need to do?
Absolutely. Hawaii is an independent state still, and the Queen is kind of waiting for that to rise up. And I don't know who else is talking about this stuff, probably a whole bunch of different people. An agreement was made a long time ago. An agreement between Hawaii and the United States, which is the Queen and Grover Cleveland. And she kept her side and he didn't.
President at the time.
President at the time,
executive
yes.
agreements. And the executive agreement said that they would return Hawaii's sovereignty, restore the government to power in Hawaii, yes?
I believe that the president, because the Queen asked him if he would, she surrendered her ability to oversee the government to him, so he could fix the problem. And in exchange for that, she said she would fix another problem, and she did her part, and he didn't do his.
Yeah.
But because they were both heads of state, it's as a treaty, same thing. So we did our side. We're waiting for him to do his side. He's dead. He has passed that responsibility, that kuleana, all the way down the line. We're at Barack Obama right now, because he's the present one. We'll see what happens. But our hope is high, because we know that what we do is good. It's good work.
What are these 2,000 people saying to all of us?
A couple things. Don't forget us. We already took a position. We're handing you. We're the successors today. They're gone, but they're reminding us by their signatures and by their presence, even though they have passed already, that the responsibility is still there. We're not done. It's not over, in other words. So that message is to continue. You continue the struggle, and you lift it up, and you let people know today that all of this stuff is still in play. It's still there, and we can help it manifest.
Wow. Wow, what a great way to leave it. Mahalo for being on Voices of Truth. Mahalo for allowing us in to witness this awesome, incredible display. This is just breathtaking here.
Thank you.
So congratulations to all of you for all your hard work.
Man, we had so many people to thank. There's just too many people.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that once they see the photos and they watch the videos about what's happening, they'll realize the role that they played.
You can't see this and not be deeply affected. And mahalo to you, our viewers, for joining us here in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall for the Ku'e Petition display. Remember, you can watch us on the web on voicesoftruthtv.com 24/7. I'm Ehuke Kahu Cardwell for the Kiwani Foundation. And until next time, ahui ho! Mahalo for watching Voices of Truth one-on-one with Hawaii's Future. Watch us on the web 24/7 at voicesoftruthtv.com. You'll find all our shows, including this one, in case you want to see it again or share it with family and friends. Also view our weekly video commentaries at freehawaiitv.com. And check out our blog, published daily, at freehawaii.info. It's all part of the Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.